Today we're going to talk about changing the oil filtration material out of this Britta water filter, and we're going to talk a little bit about this oil that I use, this Dairyland oil, and I've got some new things to tell you. So with that, I'm Evan Rowell, and this is Critical Thinking. All right, to start, before I change the filter in here, I want to talk to you a little bit about the oil that we use. Now, as you learned in a previous video, a little while ago, my oil-filled pump had failed, and I had to take it down to Harvest Right to have them check it out. They ended up honoring the warranty, even though it had expired because of some extenuating circumstances, and I was very, very pleased with that. Okay, Harvest Right's customer service and their products and everything are exactly what you would expect them to be for somebody that cares about their customers. But anyhow, I was talking to him as he was testing the oil pump about the oil that I used. And I told him I used the Dairyland oil, and he says, you know, that's good quality oil. However, there is something about a lot of these oils that are specifically designed for a specific purpose, and which Dairyland oil is specifically designed for the dairy industry and the vacuum pumps that they use on their milking machines. And he says, for most people in most operations on their Harvest Right machines, they're not going to have a problem with this oil. But he says this oil has detergents in it that are unnecessary for the application of freeze drying, and detergents can hold on to water. And he says, so you want to consider that. And I thought about that. And he asked me, he got this inquisitive look on his face, and he says, you know, I really don't understand why it is that people go looking for a better oil than we offer. Our oil is cheaper. Maybe because it's cheaper, they think it's not as good a quality oil. But he says our oils are specifically designed and formulated for use in freeze dryer vacuum pumps, or vacuum pumps that are used with freeze dryers. They keep in mind that this vacuum pump is going to be subjected to moisture, it's going to be subjected to particulates, and really he just couldn't understand it. And I begin to think, you know, well, he's right. Why do I go around looking for better oil when Harvest Right offers a vacuum pump oil that is specifically designed for the purpose? Why should I do that? So from this point on, as much as I like Dairyland oil and as quality oil it is, and no, don't, if you've got a gallon or two, don't change your oil, because I've only had one time when the detergents in this oil became a problem, and that's only because I like to experiment. And I quite often I use my Harvest Right freeze dryer and convert it into a vacuum chamber, which is easy to do, just changing the plug from the vacuum pump around and doing a couple other things. But one time I had this bright idea that I was going to see if I could rehydrate cheese. I was experimenting with cheese, and I thought, you know, if I can just get cheese to suck the water into it, maybe it would rehydrate better or faster or more effectively. And so I took a bowl and I filled it with water, and I submerged a piece of cheese into it, and I put it in the freeze dryer, and I set it up to become a vacuum chamber, and I watched it. And I turned on the vacuum pump, and sure enough, you could see the little bubbles begin to form on the outside of the cheese, and it was bubbling. It started to boil. The water actually started to boil. It was cold, but it started to boil. And that's a natural occurrence when the atmospheric pressure around the water begins to drop. So I was pleased about that. I says, oh yeah, okay, so it's drawing air out of that piece of cheese. And then when I released the vacuum, a funny thing happened. All of a sudden, I got this really intense layer of water across that plexiglass door when I put the pressure back into it, and it was evident that my vacuum pump had been pulling in a lot of humidity, a lot of water. And because it had pulled in so much water, it began to emulsify with the oil, and this is what happened. You can see here, this oil here is supposed to be as dark as this layer up here. Now you might ask yourself, well, what's that problem here? It'll separate out. You know, this oil has been sitting like this for over a month. And in that month's time, I've only got that much of the oil to separate out of it. That is how intensely the detergents in the Dairyland oil will hang on to the water content. Okay, and that's going to be true with any oil. So from now on, I'm not going to throw this away. This is still good oil. It's still quality oil. I'm going to use it until it's gone, but when I need to replace it, I'm going to replace it with the Harvest Dried oil. Okay, so with that, we're going to go ahead and change the filter in here. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to show you something to show you how effective this thing is. I took my finger and I began to press down on that oil filter. I wanted to squeeze some of the oil out of the top of it. You can see it there, but you can see how dirty that oil is inside of there. I'm going to roll it around so that you can see it. That toilet tissue insert is extremely effective at filtering out even the smallest particles. That's why that oil before I showed you that was in the bottom of here was so crystal clean and clear. And just it looked brand new. But there's something else I discovered about this material, this medium being pushed down in there and filtering the oil through it, was on several occasions as I was draining the oil, I noticed that I was getting, a few drops of water that had separated out inside the vacuum chamber. And it got into there and I went, oh, well, that's okay. It'll go through the whole system, and when it gets to the bottom, I can just siphon it out. Well, I would look at the oil that was in the bottom and I'd hold it up to the light and I'm looking for that water. Well, the water just wasn't there. And I'm going, okay, where's the water? There was only one answer. And this happened a half a dozen times where I got water into the top, but the water didn't make it through to the bottom. Fact of the matter is that toilet tissue plug in there that we're filtering that oil through was hanging onto the water. It wouldn't let it go all the way through. So it was actually filtering out not only the particulate, but it was filtering out the water. Now that doesn't mean that you can just pour a whole bunch of water in there and that's going to happen. Number one, that'll shorten the life of your plug. You'll have to end up changing it every month. But eventually some of the water is going to make it through, which is a pain. So you want to be cognizant of that. You want to, it's okay to get a few drops of water in there because the filter will filter it out, but you don't want to just assume that everything's going to be okay. So with that, when it's time to change it, and it is time to change this one, you take it, you turn it upside down, and I use a chopstick, and I push that old plug out. Now here's something interesting as you look at this plug. Sure enough, you can see there's a little bit of water in this light coloration of the plug. The top is very dark. It's very dirty because I've probably put 10 or 15 loads of oil through this plug, and it really was time to change it. So you can see by the color variations how effective this toilet tissue is at doing its job. So with that, I'm going to discard that and set this aside, and then I'm going to wipe my hands off here. They got oil all over them. But we're going to make a new plug, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay. Now what I do to make this new plug is I'll take a roll of toilet paper, and I like to use a chef's knife. You can use a utility knife, you can use a razor knife, you can use whatever you want to cut through this paper, but I find that a good, sharp chef's knife works. And I can't emphasize sharp enough to you. Anybody that uses knives on a daily basis will tell you that a sharp knife is a much safer knife to use than a dull one. And that's because a dull knife, you have to exert more pressure and more control and a tighter grip when you're using it because it won't cut as efficiently, and that makes it more prone to slipping. And when a knife slips, that's when it becomes extremely dangerous, is when it's moving and you don't have control of it. That's when you start cutting yourself. That's when the stitches start to occur. But even then, even with the sharp knife, I will use a cut-resistant glove. And This one's a little bit small for me because this is my wife's favorite glove, but it fits okay. And what I do is I'll take that roll of toilet paper and crush it down a little bit, and with a good sharp knife, I'll start to cut. And I will cut down about a ½ inch. It doesn't take a lot, but you'll see now I get off of there this nice layer of toilet tissue. Now I'll take another piece of toilet tissue and I'll wipe this out, wipe out all this old dirty oil, and make sure that it's wiped out and dry. Don't have to get crazy with it, but I do like to have it fairly clean. Okay. So anyhow, that's clean, and you're going to notice that this is tapered a little bit. So when you're rolling this up and you want to size it and make it so that it fits in there properly, you want the very top to be a little bit easy to push it in and out, because as you push it down, it's going to get tighter. Okay? So I'll take this paper. I don't need this glove anymore. I'll take the paper and I will begin rolling it up. And you want to roll it tight. Okay? You want to roll this into a nice tight roll. Okay. And I will put it down into there. Now, I don't have enough. Okay, I need a little more toilet paper. So I'm going to take this roll again, and I'm going to put the glove back on. I don't want to cut my hand off. And I'm going to cut off a little more of the paper. Okay, not much. About that much. Lay it on top of here and proceed to roll it again. Okay, so that I've got, let's see, take this off again. All right, I'm going to roll it. I'm going to roll it nice and tight. Now remember also that when you put this down into the Britta filter cartridge, and it starts to absorb oil, it's going to expand. Now you can see I've got a nice tight roll and wad. And yeah, that's about perfect. Okay. Now, some people like to put a rubber band around this. Some people like to put a piece of tape around it to hold it while you're working with it. I don't suggest that. I mean, you can, but just make sure you take it off before you put the plug in the filter cartridge, because oil will dissolve the adhesive, and in some cases it'll even dissolve the plastic, that if you use the wrong kind of tape, and it'll contaminate the oil. A rubber band, the rubber on a rubber band will begin to dissolve too. So you don't want to have anything in that plug except for the paper itself. Now, because this plug is too tall, I'm going to cut about 3/4 of an inch off of it. Oh. Let's see here. All right. When I need to do this, I will use a piece of Velcro. The only reason that I'm doing that is because I forgot to put the glove back on it. And it's important that you protect your hands when you're doing this. Paper is not the easiest thing in the world to cut. So I'm going to turn this around now, and I'm going to cut about 3/4 of an inch, maybe more. And I'm going to cut that off the top. Now you'll see with a sharp knife, this thing will cut very, very easily. It pops it right off of there. And then I can take this, take the Velcro off of it, take the glove off, and now I've got a toilet paper plug, a toilet tissue plug, if you want to call it that. And I can begin, you can see I can begin to put it in there. And if I twist it around as I push it, it will go down nicely, very effectively, and it will be level with the base of this container, so that it doesn't stick up, so the oil, when it comes in here, it can flow over the top of it. And you can see in the bottom, it's nice and tightly packed now. And there you have it, okay? Now what I like to do also, after I first put one in here, is I will dump about maybe half a cup, a third of a cup of oil, because you need to saturate that paper. Let it expand before you use it for the first time. And I'll put that in there, put the cover on it, and there you have it, okay? You just change that in there, you throw this away, and you have now got a refreshed filter medium inside this Britta gallon water pitcher. I've never used the Britta water pitcher as a water pitcher. As a matter of fact, I got this idea from somebody else on the internet, and I am so very happy with it. The fact that how effectively it filters oil, and the fact that it will hold on to small amounts of water and not let it get into the bottom. And therefore, and then when that's done, you take the oil in the bottom, you pour it back into your container, and you rotate it that way. And it works marvelously. It's not expensive. I don't remember how much I paid for the container here, but it comes with one cartridge. I've still got that cartridge upstairs. It's still in the package. I've never used it. But again, make sure you use a sharp knife. Make sure you protect your hands when you're cutting the paper. Make sure you're using, I like to use a single ply paper. And the reason that I do that is I think it compacts a lot faster. So I'll even use the less expensive toilet tissue, and then when I put the oil into the filter, it filters through. It's wonderful. It works great. So with that, we'll end it here. Hit the like and share button. I'm making a lot of different videos. If you're a freeze dryer enthusiast, I think there's a lot that you can learn from these series. I'm doing one on cheese, on dairy products, things that people tend to shy away from. There's just a lot to learn. I hope that you'll share. I hope that you will subscribe to my channel. I really would like you to visit my gallery. I'm a professional photographer also, and this is one of the reasons I like to do this, is to, you know, I was thinking of what can I do to help people get in front of my gallery to take a look at my photography. And so there's the address right there. I'll even put a link in down below. I hope you'll enjoy it. I hope that you'll visit, make a comment, make a challenge. And another thing, if you have any ideas that you want to pass by me, if you want me to try something, if you want me to show you how to freeze dry something, or how I package something, or how I do anything, or perhaps you have a tip or a trick that might add to my knowledge base, the things that I would like to know, or if you package something a certain way, or you have a certain method of doing things, let me know. If I like it, I'll include it in one of my videos, and I'll even let the people know who it is that gave me the idea, if you're okay with that. So with that, I'm Evan Rowell, and this is Critical Thinking.